Hello, everybody. Hi, Esther Jamie. And we're ready today for lesson 2. I actually recorded it with all our other members. We have a couple of new members this week, so I'm really anxious for everybody to meet. So next week, everybody can meet live, hopefully. And but anyway, today I just wanted to go ahead and keep it clean and short and not a lot of chatting in it, so the replay is a little more cohesive for you. So anyway, today is let's see, this is our second lesson, lesson 2, and we are going to talk about seed starting because this is a time of year that if you're going to start seeds, this is when we would do it. And so I thought we'd give an in-depth presentation on how to do seed starting. But before we do that, I wanted to share with you something that I did this week, which was a really fun. You might have never heard of this, but I attended 2 seed swaps. Seed swaps are free events. They are all over the place. You can Google seed swap, Eventbrite, or let's see, Meetup, or even check out different Facebook pages, and you will find them in our neighborhood right now. And fellow gardeners come and they bring their seeds, and you can bring seeds and trade as well. But if you don't have any seeds to trade, then you can just go and you'll be surprised of how many people will just say, here, take seeds. So it'll be a really wonderful way to get started in your garden and finding some new things to try to plant. So I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to share my screen and start my PowerPoint with you. Let's get my head down here. That's actually, this is a friend of mine's, the seed swap that she has. She gave a party, and hopefully next year I will be doing a seed swap as well, and you guys will be invited. Okay, so let's talk about seed starting. Why should we start seeds? And a couple of reasons is, number one, you can actually find things that you won't normally find at a local nursery. So I have a list for you guys at the end today. I will have a list that I will attach with this email that I send out with this recording that has a list of really good places to find seeds. One of the things about finding seeds is that buying seeds is that you want to buy seeds from companies that are growing plants in our temperature. So for instance, people in Arizona, California is okay, New Mexico, these places are great sources for seeds because they're going to germinate better because they're used to growing in our type of climate versus somebody from Maine or Wisconsin that have a lot of cold weather. So I have a list of those for you. Number two, you can start your seeds earlier. So by the time you get to the nursery, you could have your plants in the ground before they're even in the nursery. So they're going to get in earlier and they'll be healthier. And it's just it's all great all the way around starting seeds and sites. Main thing too is it's just a big savings. If you uh, find that you buy plants at the nursery, they are going anywhere from a dollar to $4, usually very commonly $4 or $6 for tomatoes, maybe even $10 depending on the variety. It's very expensive. If you have a lot of land, if you have a lot of things that if you have a big place that you're planting, a big raised bed, you really should think about planting seeds because the idea is to get as many plants in our raised bed as possible. We want to use that up. We want to use that real estate up because there's a lot to grow and there's a lot of different plants that can take up a lot of room. And if you plant densely, you can get more in. So it's just a lot of savings to start your seeds yourself. Okay, so what are you going to need? Now, I'm going to just go over this list with you quickly, but I have pictures and examples of all these things and also a list with links, Amazon links. So if you're interested in getting started, I have a curated list for you. So one thing we're going to do is going to have some seed starting soil. This is special soil specifically for starting seeds. This would not be potting soil. Potting soil is something that we can use in our pots or in our raised beds. Seed starting soil actually has no nutrients in it, but it's very well draining. So this is something that you're going to want to look at. We're going to need some plastic trays that have clear domes over them and a plate that goes underneath these trays to capture the water. You're going to need some plant labels, which we should already have because we would put plant labels out in our garden. We can use the same plant labels for our seed starting. We're going to need seeds. We're going to need some grow lights, a heat mat, a fan for circulation, a timer, and possibly metal shelving. So let's go through these one by one. Let's talk about the soil again. The seed starting soil is not sterile. Potting soil is not sterile. Seed starting, that's hard to say. Seed starting soil is sterile. So therefore, it's hopefully not going to have as much anything in it that would cause anything in it to disrupt the seeds. Also, the potting soil contains fertilizers, believe it or not. And that's not what we want for the seed starting. We want just a plain, sterile soil that doesn't have any nutrients in it. And it's also lighter and less compact. And again, it's going to drain really good. And that's what we want. We don't want our seeds to get in some heavy soil that's going to get the root rot in it because the roots are very delicate of our new seeds. This is what a bag of seed mix would look like. You want to make sure it has the word organic on it, and you want to make sure that it is seed. It's a seedling mix, similar, same thing, seed starting mix. So that's just a good example. There's plenty out there. Don't go with the cheapy version. Go with a good quality seed starting mix because you don't really need that much of it, but you always want to use the highest quality that you can. This is what I was talking about when I was saying plastic trays. These plastic trays have holes in the bottom, and that's why we need the tray to capture the water. One way of keeping your seeds moist and not disturbing the very tender little stems that are going to be coming up is that you water from the bottom. So you just water from the bottom, it soaks up into the soil, and your seedlings stay perfectly moist. One tip, I didn't talk about this during the class yesterday, but this is a really great tip. A fabulous way of telling whether your seeds need more water or not is that you can lift the tray up. Once the tray is filled with the soil and the seeds and been watered properly, you're going to feel it. It's a little bit have a heaviness to it. As it dries out in days or two, you're going to pick it up and feel like, oh, it's very light. That's when you know you want to water it again. Again, we want to be able to make sure that once you're planting your seeds in the seed trays that you want to mark which ones are what. This is an example of the grow lights. There's a lot of different types of grow lights. This is just a basic one. They're just LED lights, and you can get them on Amazon. If you Google Amazon grow lights, these are what's going to come up. However, I don't know if you can see this. I'm trying to move my face out of the way. This little, let me get this out of the way here. These also come up when you Google Amazon grow lights, and I don't want you to get these. These are not good. Of course, as you can see, they're demonstrating them on drawings. So not a good sign that they're going to work just because someone could paint a picture of some flowers underneath some lights. So don't use these kind, but do use, and actually one of our members was saying that she was just at a garage sale that somebody had some extra really good grow lights that even had a fan underneath it. And that's always a good thing to have, is some type of movement, because number one, we want the plants to feel like they're outside, and it strengthens them to have a little bit of motion on them. And number two, it keeps the fruit flies away. Oops, what happened? Now it's not working. Resume. There we go. Okay, one other thing that's a really good thing to have is a heat mat. A heat mat is going to help the seeds germinate, especially our warm plants like our tomatoes and our peppers. These are our plants that we're getting ready to start right now and for spring. And they like the soil temperature to be around 70 degrees. And that's not always easy to do if you have your seeds outside in the garage, or maybe in your laundry room where it's not so warm. So a heat mat is great. it's a great thing to have. It's going to really help your seeds, give them a boost. And another thing I was mentioning is a fan. It doesn't have to be anything special. It can just be any old fan, not too hard, but a gentle something that's going to circulate the air. And this is what the heat mat looks like. So it goes underneath the seed tray and it just warms up the soil and better germination. So let's talk about watering again. We want to, once we get the seeds in, okay, let's talk about how we're going to plant the seeds before we water them. When you get your seed starting soil, you want to get a big bowl. I think I have a picture of this. Oh, let me see if I find it. There it is. Okay. You know what? Let's go to that right now. We're going to get a big bowl of it. Get a big bowl. You can get a big metal bowl, whatever you want. Put all your soil in it that you want to use. Add the water in the bowl and then mix it up by hand. You're going to see that the water tends to repel. And if you keep massaging it, it does finally soak into the soil. So you do not want to get your seed trays, fill them up with dry soil, and then try to water. Trust me, it doesn't work at all. You want your soil moist, as if it's as moist as a wrung out sponge. That's a good way of doing it. If you take a handful of your soil and you squeeze your hand and it stays into a little bit of a ball, that's a good sign that you've got enough water in there. So get that soil nice and moist, then you can pat it into the cells and then plant your seeds. And then you're going to water again. So that's how it works. When you go to water it, do so with some type of a watering can that has a lot of holes in it, because that's going to make a gentle flow of water and that's going to keep your seeds from flying all over the place and getting mixed up. You do want to gentle water it. If not, you don't even have to do that. If you're want to, it's really best just to water it from the bottom. But you want to keep it moist for the first few days until you start seeing those seedlings come up. And these seed squares these seed cells do come with a plastic dome. So what you do is you get everything planted, you put your plastic dome up, you put your grow light on, and then that's going to create this nice, warm, moist environment. And I'm telling you, within a couple of days, you're going to see sprouting coming up. It's very exciting. So as far as lighting goes, this is the part that's a little bit tricky. I was the reason why I'm actually even bringing this up is that I was at one of our members' houses recently, and I noticed that she had been seed starting and thought, oh, I'll just put it in the window, a nice south-facing window, nice and sunny. And when I got there, the seedlings were really not happy because they were growing, yes, but they were very long and stretched. It's called what's it called? When they get leggy, when they get long and stretched, it means they're stretching for the sun. And then when you go to plant them outside, they're not going to be very healthy. So no matter where you are, it's really optimal to have a grow light when you're going to start seeds. And that being said, you have to make sure that the grow light is close enough to the seeds. They have to be about 4 inches above the trays. And once the seeds sprout, you take that plastic lid off and you keep that grow light right about 4 inches. And as the plant is growing up, you're going to have to keep moving that grow light up and up and up. So it takes a little bit of work, but it's so worth it. So if that makes sense, you don't want the plants to get leggy. And and you want to keep that light on 10 to 12 hours a day. So it's not an exact science, but you keep that light on. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that you need a timer. So you put a timer on and it's going to flip the light on for 10 hours. And then at night, I always suggest to have it flip off at night when everything's dark anyway, and have it off because the plant needs to have a little nap. It can't just be on 24 hours a day. It's just too much for it. It's stressing it out. So yes, have that light go on and off. And I like to put mine on a shelf because number one, you can hang your grow light from the top shelf down and then you're adjusting it. So like this shelf you see right here, the bottom and middle shelf would be the two shelves that you have your seedlings on, and then you would hang the grow light from the top shelf and the middle shelf. In that way, they can be adjusted. And this one, again, I will have that middle shelf. It's only $49 on Amazon, and hopefully you can get started growing. So you fill the trays, and when you go to add the seeds, I highly recommend putting a couple of seeds in. This is actually not a good, not really shouldn't have put this as a picture because they're not really planting seeds, they're planting seedlings. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about actually planting this just seeds right onto that top of that soil. And what you would do is put at least 3 seeds per cell. And the reason why I suggest doing that is because you want to have this germination success. When you get a little packet of seeds, not 100% of them are going to germinate. So you have to sort of experiment with them. So you can, if you have really, really tiny seeds, sometimes I just shake it around and just like shake them out, and maybe there's 4 or 5 in a cell. And if that's the case, once they sprout, then you can do something that's called thinning, and that's like taking a little, that's like taking, that's when you take a tweezers and you can pull out the, so that you only have maybe 2 plants per cell or even 1 plant per cell. And that's how it works. So you check, number one, when you get ready to plant your seeds, you want to check the packet to see how deep they're supposed to be planted. A good rule of thumb is planting a seed 3 times its width. And let me tell you, when you get some of these smaller seeds, like lettuce seeds or carrot seeds, they're minute. So really those just need to be sprinkled right on top. And you can just sprinkle a little bit of extra soil on top of that and then water it. That's all it needs. If you had a bigger seed, like let's say an okra seed is pretty big, then you can plant that down a ways and make sure that it's got that down nice and deep. So the tiny, tiny seeds you sprinkle lightly over, cover with a tiny bit of soil, and then um, water. This is thinning. This is what I was showing you, telling you about. See how there's a couple of plants per those tiny cells? You really, if it's your cells are that tiny, you really only want 1, at the most 2 per cell. So always pick out the weakest ones, leave the healthiest ones, and then you're going to have really healthy seedlings. And again, this is the fan, another fan setup. You can actually buy a fan that clips on. You could put your fan to the side. So it just depends on how your setup is. This is actually a little bit of a, that's a big fan. That's actually too big. That would be like a hurricane to those plants. But just do a small fan just to slowly let it gently make it like a light breeze to your plants. It's like strength training for your seedlings. Once you have all that done, you are going to want to monitor it every day. You want to make sure that the grow lights are going on and off at the right times. You want to monitor the soil moisture. You don't want them to dry out, but you don't want them waterlogged either. So I would say when you go to, we talked about this, we're going to get the soil nice and moist. We're going to plant the seeds. We might put a little more water on top gently, and then we're going to water from the bottom. I would say only water about leave about a quarter of an inch from the bottom in that shelf underneath it, that tray underneath it. And then once that tray gets dehydrated, it's all goes away, all the water goes away. Make sure you feel it. If it still feels heavy, then you don't have to water. But once that feels nice and light again, you need to water. You don't want it to dry out, that's for sure. Dry soil equals no germination. Keep an eye on that. And as your seedlings grow, your light's going to go higher and higher. Also, once the plants are sprouted, it really is good to feed them with some fish emulsion. Now, this is a liquid fertilizer and you do have to dilute it. It's really, really important. As a matter of fact, less is more. Do not actually read the directions. It's like a cap full per gallon and even less. Like I would just do a little bit, but it is nice to fertilize your plants once they get the leaves on it. All right, so now you've got a couple of weeks, maybe 4, 6 weeks in, your plants have 4 to 5 leaves on them. You're going to be ready to transplant them. So when you get ready to transplant them, get ready to go outside, they are going to have to do something called hardening off. You're not going to just take those little seedlings that have been coddled in a nice warm 70-degree heat pad in a nice warm room and stick it outside in the cold weather. They are going to die. So we have to gradually harden them off. You place them outside in a sunny spot for an hour and you bring them back in. Put a timer on. Trust me on this one. It's like, have you ever tried to roast a pine nut in your, it's like I've burnt so many pine nuts in my years because I never put a timer on. You think, oh, it's just an hour, I'll remember. No, put your hour on, it comes back in. Once again, it goes under the grow lights. Take it out the next day, 2 hours, 3 hours the next day. You do it for about a week until they get really good and healthy, and then you can plant them outdoors. So that's a huge tip because I don't want you to have spent all this money on setup, all this time and energy checking on them, planting them, and then them not being able to survive. So that's really important. So get your raised bed ready. You want to make sure your soil is amended. You don't want to plant those babies in anything but super rich soil that's got some compost in it or some worm castings all dug up in it. You dig a hole and you pop it out of the seedling. It's going to be a little square and you pop it out, put it in, flush with the soil and add your label, water gently, and there's your new plant. So I hope you'll get started, and that's it for today. Okay, let's go back to the main. Let's go back here to stop sharing. Okay, let's see. I just wanted to say that I'm hoping everybody's enjoying this. I really want feedback. I want to hear if you are liking these classes. I want to hear what you want more of. So please write me. We're going to start a Facebook group. It's going to be called Fancy Pants Gardens. It'll be a private-based group for you guys. And I will send more information on that. And I already could see it this week. I wish if you had been there, if you were one of the lucky ones that were there yesterday, you'll see everybody was giving great tips and hopefully exchanging numbers. And it's going to be a really good community of gardeners. And a lot of you all are in Summerland, which I'm very excited about. I'm planning on a garden tour at the extension coming up. So that's going to be coming up. What else? We're going to have a potluck one of these days where everybody can get together, come see my garden this spring in full bloom. And we're going to have a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot more things happening, but just wanted to give you heads up on that. Your homework this week is I want you guys to really start thinking about your spring planting. I'm going to send along some list of plants and seeds that you should be thinking about in planting in your garden. And I want to go back to that idea of the plate method. I want you to think about how big each plant's going to get because it's going to limit the number of plants that you can actually put in your raised bed, depending on how big your raised bed is. So just a quick review of the plate method. This is where every seed, every seedling, every plant starts off as a baby, but then it gets big. Sometimes some of them get so small. Some of them don't get too big, but some of them get huge. So you really want to know what it is that you're planting, how big it's going to be, and allot that plant that much room in your garden, and that's going to limit what you get to plant. If you have any questions, if you want to draw up a little plan of your raised bed and send it to me, I'm happy to take a look at it. We can actually take a few of you guys and use you as examples next week. I think that'll be very helpful. So I hope everybody sends me examples of what they're thinking about. If they're trying to draw something up and they're like, I just don't know what a zucchini is going to do. And I'll give you the hint. A zucchini is quite large. It's almost it's a platter plant. It's very big. So it's pretty darn big. So these are the kind of things that I'm happy to answer these questions because these are the hard questions to plan. And we're getting ready to have a lot of choices for spring. There's a lot of wonderful plants we can plant. So I hope this is helpful. Please let me know Again, reach out to me with your questions. We'll answer them at the end of every call. Next week, we're in 2 more weeks from now. I will be reminding you of that in the newsletter. And I am so proud of everybody. I'm so excited about this group. I think we're learning a lot, and there's going to be a lot more to learn, a lot more questions to have as we go on through the year. So have a great 2 weeks. Please keep me in touch, keep me in the loop, reach out to me, and I will see you in 2 weeks.